I work for a GP practice. I'm the end user, so I'm the one that has to use it at the end. And so I was part of the pilot scheme. I'd been banging on for ages, and I think I'd annoyed enough people to say I want to be able to do stuff myself. And they finally said, we've got this project, we want to try it, we want to try and give you some access, but we want to make sure it's secure. Would you like to try it? And the answer was yes. And the answer is now, please don't take it away from me. A lot of my role is trying to look at how can we use processes and digital processes in particular, and digital services to make our lives easier. With most other systems that we use, we are the admins of them. So if someone leaves, we quickly disable them. Whereas because we weren't the admins for our computer system, people were getting missed out. And actually, one of the first things I did when I got the PPA product was I used it to run an audit of all the people that had an account with us. And actually, we only moved over to our current computer system in August, and we already had about 60 people that were kind of flailing in the background of they were still had an active account that we needed to remove. Now, wow. If I was to raise that with the CSU, each of those have to be raised as a separate ticket. Each of them have to be dealt with, then a ticket responded to. So it was a lot of work for myself to raise tickets. It was a lot of work for the CSU to deal with the tickets because they had to log each one. And then they had to respond to me to say they've done each one. And you're talking about probably in the region of 5 or 6 emails I would receive automatically to tell me this has been done, this has been done, this has been done. So when you're talking about 60 users, you're talking about a couple of hundred emails. Now, I think one universally agreed thing from any profession I've spoken to is we get too many emails. So actually cutting out 200 emails was quite nice. But also from an actual like data point, it's much more secure. And from a financial point, that's 60 licenses for like Microsoft Office and everything that we're not paying for anymore, or we can reutilize. When you start going across the entire CCG, that starts mounting up to several hundred, probably nearly 500 users that we can start going, actually, they don't need accounts anymore. If we can save that 500 licenses, that's quite a significant saving that can then be reutilized. Yeah, I think a really good example is probably there's 2 actually key ones. One is resetting a password. You know, when someone comes to you and says, I need my password reset, as a member of the practice, I know who they are. So I don't need to do all the security checks because the person's in front of me and I recognize them. Whereas obviously with the CSU, they need to do security checks. And if you can't pass those security checks, as a manager, I then have to email the CSU, which is, again, not their fault because they don't know the person. They're a help desk. So actually, we've taken away some of that burden, and it's very transactional. It's with the PPA, I click one button that brings up the playbook, one button that I type in their name, and then I type in what password I want. And within about 2 minutes, then I've reset their password. Whereas when you're calling somewhere else, they've got to log a ticket, they've got to complete the ticket. You start adding a lot of burden in the background that's actually, as a practice, I only care about that password reset. I don't need the ticket created, but they need to create a ticket because they need to track what they're doing. And actually, Osirium has already done that for us. When I've reset the password, the other one I just was a really good one was when we're talking about security, especially, was changing security groups. I used to have access to the AD tool on a previous system, which I was given to trial something. And although I could do it, it was confusing. It was, you really had to know what you were doing and you had the potential to do quite a lot of damage. But when we do it on this one, I actually can't do anything outside of scope because the PPA tool is just running me through what I can and can't do. And when I mentioned earlier about what we're doing is very transactional. So it's something that was in a queue, but something else might come above it. Like if a site went down, quite rightly, resources got reallocated to that to sort those things out. Whereas resetting a password or something like that, they're very transactional. They're very high volume, but they're very easy to do. And by automating that, and not just automating it, but allowing me access to a system I can't get access to normally, because quite rightly, I should not have access to the entire AD system. but they've given me the tool now to do the part I need to do, which is taking those transactional away, and it will allow them to then focus on the other parts that they need to do. So yeah, that actually just a really good example is that reset password I mentioned earlier. End to end, that's about 7 minutes if you make a call to the CSU, because you've got to be on hold for a little bit, then they'll answer, then they'll do it, then they create the ticket and stuff. PPA, it takes me about a minute to make sure I'm on the right page and logged in and everything, launched up my laptop, etc., and about a minute to do the task. Some 2 minutes, so 7 minutes to 2 minutes, it's quite a win. And from the CSU side, it's 0 minutes because they haven't had to take a call. I was asked to be part of the project. I chose someone who regularly gets asked for some help, but doesn't have any knowledge like this. And we deliberately, when we tested our playbooks with them, with yourselves and with the CSU, I made her test them. I made my colleague test them, and I didn't give her any input because I wanted to see, is this straightforward to do without being guided? And we actually found that the main thing was we had telling her to slow down because we couldn't tick off our things on our test sheet quick enough. And that just says that it was that straightforward that she felt confident just to carry on going. We were like, no, 1 sec, slow down. We need to check this part. We need to tick this off. Yep, we've ticked that. But she didn't need any training, really. She was able to just go, it's told me what I need to do, click on that one, and now it's telling me everything I need to do. We met with the CSU and we came up with a number of kind of playbooks or tasks that we really wanted to be able to do. And then we kind of put them into order of what is the simplest ones to do versus the highest impact. So, for example, the changing someone's security group is quite powerful, but it's also a lot more complex compared to resetting someone's password. And I'm going to use the reset password infinitely more times than I'm going to use the change security group. So we picked some simple ones to start with and some more complex ones to end with. We got a couple, and then we got a couple more after, so that we could get going with that trial. We had a script of things we needed to test, and we were able to tick off those. And then we had it for about, I think it was about 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, where we were just given it and told, use it as you kind of want, as you would in real life. And then following that, we did an evaluation of how it went, kind of talking through the different parts. Were they simple? Were they not? And to be honest, the main things that we kind of discussed that we might need to alter was more around the fact that we might need to alter it because every practice is slightly different. I've got to say, I've worked on a number of projects, and I'm not saying this just for the sake of saying this is probably one of the better projects that I've been part of, if not one of the best. And I think there's a couple of very simple reasons why. One is the product works. It does what it says. I want to reset a password, it lets me reset a password. I want to do this, it lets me do this. So I think from the Osirium side, that's great. But actually, there's also a point that said this was a project where there was a number of moving parts, a number of people involved, but we all wanted that same end product. We wanted it for slightly different reasons, but we all agreed what we wanted. I think wherever you've got someone that has access but not an admin on site. So if you're the admin of all your systems, great. I think it still helps because I think it makes it easier, but you may not need the automation part. Whereas this has managed to fill that gap of security that I can't have access to the full system, the full AD. And actually, like I said earlier, it was more complex to use the full AD than using the playbooks. But you've delegated, and I think it's all about that delegation.